can resolve. So come and prepare your whole selves, hearts and minds, for our service of Ingathering. I'm just thrilled to see you all. Real people. It's great. So, just a quick reminder, before we actually start or continue with our service, for those who are present in the building, we have, as you know, adopted some guidelines to keep us all safe. And so, many of you know about these already, and they include keeping your mask on at all times unless you have a speaking part. There will be no coffee hour, so we ask that you also not gather in the building following the service. Maintain social distancing, which means keeping 2 seats between each household and honoring the ropes that are set up for in between rows. Also, keeping that social distance for outside activities. Stay with your household group and so forth. As you know, today we have the planting of native plants and the dedication of our outdoor sanctuary. So even then, we're asking that you keep your masks on and you keep social distancing. Now, during the hymns, we will not be singing, but you can hum softly, and you can actually even express yourself by using simple movements instead of singing. You know that we're taking the utmost care during this time for the safety of all, so thank you. And now let us continue with our worship. We gather in many ways this morning, from our homes, from this sanctuary, and in our outdoor areas. From wherever you are, the space between us is sacred space that holds the connections that we have with one another and our connections with all that is holy, all that is worthy of our deepest, deepest attention. At last, this is our ingathering service. You can express yourself whatever way you want. To honor the 18 months that we have not gathered in this sanctuary, I'm going to ring in just a moment this bell 18 times. Let's allow these sounds to echo within us as together we hold the memories of this time that we've had apart. Let's allow the sound to fill the places that have longed for our being together once more. Allow these sounds to resonate in this sanctuary and across all the various places that we gather this morning to remind us that we are connected in many ways. Today, indeed, we are gathered in spirit. Today, indeed, we are harvesting the power that moves within us and through us to make our lives whole.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join me by lighting it now. This morning's flame is a symbol of hope, of gathering, both online and here in the sanctuary. As this flame lights a way forward into a new church year of promise and renewal, let us embrace that hope and joy.
Harvest the poor.
ask you to please join me in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits and fights injustice and transforms the world through loving action.
Hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you for Ingathering. Today, I am going to share the story Higgins, A Drop with a Dream by Reverend Chris Bice. Once upon a time, there was a drop of water named Higgins. Higgins was no ordinary drop of water. He was a drop with a dream. Higgins lived in a valley where it had not rained in a very long time. So, all of the lovely green grass was turning brown. All the beautiful flowers were wilting, and all the trees were starting to droop. Higgins had a dream that one day the valley would be a beautiful place again. But what could he do? After all, he was only a drop of water. One day, Higgins decided to travel and tell others about his dream. All the other drops listened very politely, but no one believed that his dream would come true. Higgins, said one, get your head out of the clouds. You can't spend your whole life dreaming. Higgins decided that he had to do something to make his dream come true. So he began to think and think and think some more. And then one day, as he was walking by an old bucket, he had an idea. If enough of us drops of water got together in this bucket, Higgins thought, there would be enough water to sprinkle on a few flowers and help them grow and become beautiful again. Eagerly, Higgins told everyone his great idea, but everyone thought he was being foolish. That Higgins is nothing but a dreamer, they said. Higgins decided he had to do something to convince the others that he was right. So he said to them, I don't know about you, but I'm getting into the bucket. I hope some of you will join me. Then there might be enough water to help at least some of the flowers grow. So Higgins ran as hard as he could, hopped way up in the air, and landed with a kerplunk in the bottom of the bucket. And there he sat, just a drop in the bucket. For a long time, Higgins was very lonely. It seemed like no one else was going to join him. But after a while, some of the other drops could see that the grass was dying, and the flowers were wilting, and the trees were drooping. They all agreed that something must be done. Suddenly, one drop shouted, I'm going in the bucket with Higgins. And he leaped through the air and landed kerplunk in the bucket. Then, two other drops yelled, wait for us! And they hopped through the air and landed in the bucket. Then, 10 drops dropped through the air into the bucket. Then 30, then 50, and then hundreds of drops came from all around just to hop in the bucket. Soon, the bucket was completely full of water, but there were still more drops that wanted to join. So they found another bucket and hopped in. Before long, there were 2 buckets of water, then 3, and then 4, then 10, and then hundreds of buckets of water. Along came a powerful breeze that blew over all of the buckets, and all the water flowed together to make a mighty stream. Everywhere the water flowed, the grass turned green again, and the flowers bloomed, and the trees stood tall and straight once again. All this happened because Higgins had a dream, and his dream came true. Because he knew that although he was just a drop in the bucket, enough drops in the bucket make a bucket full. And when there are enough buckets with the wind behind them, then justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I wonder what dreams you have for our congregation. I wonder what small thing you can do to start making your dream come true.
Love that story. So, as we gather, however we are gathering this morning, may we bring to this time of prayer and meditation a compassionate awareness to our whole self, our joys, our sorrows, our hopes, and our fears. As we gather, however we gather this morning, may we extend our compassion to those in our world who need more love, more care, more justice. In the holiness of this time, may we feel that the unnecessary divisions within ourselves and between us and others, may we feel all of those divisions dissolve into a love that holds us and a care that connects us. As the poet and philosopher Mark Nepo reminds us, it is the capacity to feel keenly that reveals the meaning in our experiences. If you are thirsty, you can't dip your face into the stream and say, "I'll only drink the hydrogen and not the oxygen." If you remove one from the other, the water cannot remain water. Likewise, the life of feeling is no different. We cannot drink only of happiness or sorrow and have life remain life. The truth is that as the lungs make use of the air we breathe, the heart makes use of the things that we experience. Thus, to be alive is to feel. This is our right. To feel keenly is our necessary condition as human beings. In the silence that follows, may we be nurtured by presence, a presence to ourself and to our whole self, and may we feel a presence with one another in a special way today. And may we vow to bring our presence more fully into the world. Let's gather in silence now.
I invite you now to say out loud or enter into the chat the names of those who are of concern and on your hearts and your minds at this hour. And may all those names, spoken or unspoken, feel your love, and may they know the warmth of healing and peace this day.
This year, of course, we cannot do our gathering of the waters or our water communion in the usual way, when each of us brought a small vial of water to add to our common bowl. Instead, this morning, we've adapted this ritual. Into this common bowl, I will soon pour the waters that have been reserved from past water communions and ingathering services of this congregation, waters that have come to us from generation to generation. As I prepare to pour this water, first I ask you to pause and invite you to bring to mind the faces of those who may have passed that you want to remember. Say their names softly in your heart or even aloud if you want. Or you may want to reflect on your most cherished memories of this congregation, the people, the events, the qualities that make this a cherished place for you. Now, I will pour this water from past ingathering services into this common bowl. Waters representing, we will also have an opportunity following this to add to these waters that represent Wellsprings, life storms, renewal, and the streams of justice. So these waters of memory that have been gathered from generation to generation, may they gather into our common bowl of memory and hope. So, Wellsprings. As Eli Claney prepares to pour water into our common bowl to represent the wellsprings of our life, take a moment now to reflect on what it is that upholds you, supports you, strengthens you, or gives you hope. As this water is poured into our bowl, let us acknowledge these wellsprings of our own life and the life of this congregation. Life storms, as Nancy Pinson prepares to pour water into our common bowl to represent the life storms of our life now or those that we've navigated. Take a moment to reflect on the particular challenges that we or those we care about may be facing. As we pour this water into this common bowl, may it represent for us the life storms that we have weathered and may be still weathering. In challenging times, may we each feel surrounded by a greater love and by a presence of this congregation. Renewal. As Helen Foss prepares to pour water into our common bowl to represent renewal, take a moment now to reflect on your own yearnings for renewal. How might we each open ourselves to reconnection and renewal in spite of the challenges of reconnecting during this time? How can each of us be sources of renewal for one another? The streams of justice, as James Moser prepares to pour water into our common bowl to represent the streams of justice. Take a moment to reflect on the words of the Hebrew prophet. Let justice roll down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. So as we gather again for this new church year, may we connect to the Wellsprings, to the life's storms we've experienced, and the sources of renewal within ourselves. May we feel held by an ever-expanding love in the presence of this congregation. And may we each vow to be part of that flow of compassionate action into this world that thirsts for justice.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
When I was in college, just to be clear, we're not talking about Old Testament times. We're talking about the 70s, yes, the 1970s. The late 1970s, I majored in psychology. I took all the required courses, developmental psychology, statistics, personality theories, psychometrics, none of which I remember, and one course, experimental psychology. In that course, I had a choice. I could work with rats or with people. Now, I am squeamish about rats, so I chose to focus on people, but that's not the only reason. I also noticed that I had a number of classmates who were squeamish about people and decided to work with rats. So as time went on and I entered into my work in the world as a psychotherapist, organizational consultant, professor, and a minister, I decided there probably are some very good reasons to be squeamish about people. I'm just joking. I mean, in those roles, you don't always see people at their best. And sometimes it is in those roles in particular that you discover the best things about people and how remarkable and resilient, how generous and gracious people can actually be. I don't have to go too far for examples for this. For example, this very moment that we're in right now has happened through the combined efforts to create a Sunday morning experience like this, Ingathering Sunday. We are gathered for worship in the sanctuary and through live stream. We are offering religious education outdoors. Some of us will gather for the multiple generation event of dedicating our outdoor sanctuary and planting native plants after today's service. And these are just the Sunday events. There's small groups and pastoral care and preparing the kitchen for remodeling. Someone even gave her time this week to measure ropes for this sanctuary and to shop for them. Some people gathered the tools and the trees for the planting. People gathered to sing and to prepare a recording for today's service. We are able to gather in this sanctuary this morning with all of our necessary requirements because we're willing to do what we need to do for the safety of all. And we are willing to do whatever we can do to gather again with one another. I could go on and on about all the things that went into creating the kind of experiences that you're used to having from this congregation. But I think at the heart of it, this is a place where graciousness and commitment to the greater good just exudes in so many ways. There's a dedication to something larger that propels and coordinates all of these actions that compose our gatherings and our gathering experiences. It is that something larger that I want to focus on this morning. Gathering together across all our diverse experiences and expectations is really a radical act in an increasingly consumer-oriented and on-demand world. After we've been cocooning for so many months during this pandemic, in one way or another, or in waves of cocooning, gathering is a generous act. Whether we're online or in the sanctuary, it is a radical act to gather. It displays a generosity of spirit, an openness to spirit that very few places in our culture really require. We all know that Unitarian Universalists are not persnickety, right? We all realize that the hymn that you don't like might be someone else's favorite, or the theological words that cause some of us to scratch are soothing to someone else. Some of us are here for comfort, and others of us want to be motivated to change the world or to feel the power of belonging to a community like this, or some combination of all of these. Yet we gather together anyway, even after many of us have had months of on-demand experiences at our fingertips or on our smartphones. Priya Parker, in her book, The Art of Gathering, How to Meet and Why It Matters, states this about a trend that she's noticed in our society. The moments when we could benefit from gathering, we don't think to gather, or are too busy to. Or, in the modern way, we don't want to ask people for their time. Parker even makes the point that there are a growing number of people that say they don't want a funeral or a memorial service when they die, as if the gathering is for them alone. Over these last several months of the pandemic, we've recognized that we can't just take it for granted that we want to gather, that we need to gather, that we yearn to gather with one another. And sadly, some who wanted a funeral or a memorial service could not have one in the same way that their family and friends would have wanted. So Parker's life work is about constantly gathering people from around the world, sometimes in places where there's a lot of conflict and a need for people to talk to one another and to gather and attend to one another. She recognizes that all of our ways of gathering have had to go through a makeover, surprise, in the last several months. whether we're meeting on social media, on Zoom, or socially distanced, or in smaller groups. She recognizes that we will continue to gather because there's something deeply human across all cultures about gathering. Priya Parker writes, "Why do we gather? We gather to solve problems we can't solve on our own. We gather to celebrate, to mourn, to mark transitions. We gather to make decisions. We gather because we need one another. We gather to show strength. We gather to show honor and to acknowledge one another. We gather to welcome, and we gather to say goodbye." The operative word that I noticed in her list was not the word I, it was we. We gather. The main point that Parker makes that oftentimes, with all of our reasons for gathering, we sometimes miss the first step in convening meaningfully together. And she says that first step is committing to a bold, sharp purpose. As we gather, and this ingathering service, I want us to ponder together the purpose for our gathering. We've spent so much time thinking about how to gather, how we could gather, and all the logistics and protocols that are required, that I think it's time for us to ask the deeper question: why do we gather? Some of that why I will propose now to you is grounded in our religious tradition and also our theology as Unitarian Universalists. When I thought about it, I realized that our act of gathering is actually more radical than I thought. Given our tradition, I realized that we should have a caution sign actually posted at the door. I think we should have an opening slide for our online services, online live streaming, that should say, "Proceed with caution, people present, transformation possible." If we're really doing what we say we want to do, then we need to be prepared to not always leave a gathering the same way that we entered it. We need to not expect that our gathering experiences together will be just one ditto mark after another. If we're really true to what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist, we have to engage in the discipline and the expectation that we come together for a purpose. And in subtle and remarkable ways, when we are among people, virtually or in person, we recognize that transformation is our aim and that transformation is possible. To say that word transformation, I feel a little self-conscious. Sometimes it can seem so trite because it's so overused, unless we really understand that our religious forebears fought hard for the possibility and the necessity of human transformation in ways that we have come to take for granted. They rebelled against a prevalent theological idea of their time that our fate is all decided, that we are predestined, that it's all up to God to decide, and we must just accept our fate. Our religious forebears fought hard against some fixed idea of who it is that we are as human beings, such as Jonathan Edwards' proclamation that we are all sinners in the hands of an angry God. He probably said it with a bellowing voice. I won't do that. Instead, our Unitarian and Universalist spiritual ancestors, our spiritual relatives, broke out of the molds that attempted to limit the capacity and the agency of the human being. Instead, we proclaim that we can affect our own salvation, that we can and we must cultivate our character. They had perspectives and practices among the early Unitarians which they called self-culture, what we might today simply call personal growth, but it was actually more than that. Our religious ancestors also challenged and changed social conditions that limited human potential for those marginalized and oppressed by our humanly constructed social structures. They believed in a transformation that emanated like waves into the society at large as well. We have inherited a faith tradition that point out to us that we should be about ongoing transformation of consciousness and of the conditions that oppress others. The more contemporary Unitarian minister, A. Powell Davies, renowned for helping through his radio broadcast to gather new congregations of Unitarians and Universalists in the Beltway area of Washington, put it succinctly when he said, "Life is just a chance to grow a soul." He went on to affirm that religion is not something separate and apart from ordinary life. It is life, life of every kind, he said, viewed from the standpoint of meaning and purpose, life lived in the fuller awareness of its human quality and spiritual significance. Now, on a day that he might have had a scuffle with someone, he wrote these lines: "You cannot have a good character today and at the same time have a small mind and a little heart. You cannot have a good character today and be merely a petty reformer." I resonate so much with the spirit of our spiritual ancestors who remind me, who remind us, that we are not gathering as Unitarian Universalists to conform, but to transform. There's that word again. That we don't commit to just conforming to society, but to reforming it along some broader principles. I have been propelled in life by that same spirit beyond the struggles of a parent's divorce when I was 9, beyond the death of my mother when I was 16, beyond the erosion of a Catholic faith that was not only my inherited religion, but also a critical part of my Italian and Irish identity, beyond the challenges of growing up at a time when my sexual identity was considered sinister, sinful, and sick. I was propelled by the alchemy of our liberal religious faith to participate in my own becoming, rather than to accept the theological and social narratives that limited or could have limited the horizon in front of me. So, folks, it's the same for many of us. We gather not to conform, but to transform. We gather not for conforming to what is, but to reform in the direction of what could be. Shouldn't this proceed with caution? People present, transformation possible. Be on our illuminated sign on Route 202? Yes or no? Let me see some votes. Okay. This is not an add water and stir religion, friends. At our best, we gather the Spirit, we harvest the power. Annie Dillard, I think, recognized how casual we tend to be about what could happen in congregations when we gather. She writes, "It is madness," she says, "to wear ladies' straw hats and velvet hats to church. We should all be wearing crash helmets. Ushers should issue life preservers and signal flares. They should lash us to our pews. For the sleeping God may wake someday and take offense, or the waking God may draw us out to where we can never return." The Unitarian theologian and philosopher Henry Nelson Wyman, whose work was a focus, actually, of Martin Luther King's doctoral dissertation, speaks to us of this power, of a relational power that I think is so critical as we gather again. As we dare to take the radical act of gathering together in spite of and because of our differences. Wyman speaks of a power that can work within us and among us when we gather. It's not automatic, he says. There are some conditions, some disciplines to make it possible. But Wyman asserts that the human is made for creative transformation as a bird is made for flight. We sometimes forget that. We sometimes don't remember that. Sometimes we're rudely reminded of that. He came to call that power that makes transformation possible creative interchange. He said the creative interchange is experience, the kind of experience that transforms us in ways which we cannot transform ourselves. As we meet in shared experiences, we become more fully aware of the ways in which we can never predict or bring about by striving to do so. He argues that we come together and are influenced by a creative interchange that shifts us, shifts our own perspectives, opens us to the perspectives of others, that we can appreciate others' perspectives as much as we appreciate our own and come to some new understanding. So, as I conclude, I want to propose two contrasting images of what it means to gather as a religious community. One is this. You know those metal turnstiles, or those that with metal clips that they have in restaurants that servers clip the order slips on? Do you know what I mean? I don't know what they're called, but anyway, there's that. So that could be one model where we're collecting everyone's individual slip. Imagine that turnstile with everyone just putting their own individual order in, and then we're having to manage each person's individual order. You realize in that image, people are only concerned about you getting their order right. So that's one version. Another one way to illustrate that is people might say, I like my programs or my sermons to include these ingredients, but don't include these. I have an allergy to those words. I like my theology over easy, or I want an extra helping of social justice. We're all about something larger as well, not just our own, but being part of a community. We're able to listen with a broader heart and imagination to all of that. And so there's another image, and that will be my concluding image, of a mobile, the mobile that kind of hangs as a work of art. All the component pieces seem to be free-floating in space, through the wires and the braces that keep them interconnected and interrelated. Changing or removing just one part of the mobile causes the rest of the system to swing through some changes of position, trying to accommodate that initial change. So as we regather, I want us to be tender with one another. I want us to be generous with one another. I want us to recognize how deeply interconnected we actually are with one another. And may we recognize that we honor ourselves as individuals, but we also deeply honor the interconnectedness that we have with one another. It's in that interconnectedness that we can be gentle, we can be generous, we can be understanding and compassionate with one another. That's my wish.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred
This month's special stewardship offering is for Peace Week Delaware. Peace Week Delaware, which is now in its 6th year, was the brainchild of a movement for a culture of peace. And both organizations have their roots here at First U. Peace Week Delaware has several of our members serving on its steering committee. So why Peace Week? Every day throughout the year, individuals and organizations are working tirelessly to help communities experience peace. Why set aside 9 days and call it a week to focus on peace? It is a concentrated opportunity for a synergy of ideas, a shared vision of diverse people, exposure to new ways of thinking about peace, and a call to action. By providing opportunities for everyone in a free, nonpartisan series of publicized events, Peace Week Delaware expands the audience and elevates the message: peace is possible. This year, Peace Week Delaware is October 2nd through 10th. And I encourage you to check out the website, peaceweekdelaware.org, where you can see the diversity of events that are planned. Topics include protecting voting rights, suicide detection and prevention, climate crises, alternatives to violence, building community among diverse groups, strategies to build inner peace, visions of peace through the arts, and so much more. Some are in person, but due to COVID, most are virtual, including Zoom and YouTube opportunities. I find that peace is like a Rubik's Cube with many facets and many ways to approach the topic, so I register for events that may lead to a new understanding or action for me. Peace Week Delaware is managed by a small group of volunteers and is supported entirely by donations. Your contributions will allow Peace Week to enhance its outreach strategies and reach as many people as possible. Now, an anonymous donor has generously offered an incentive. If the total of our contributions reaches $500 or more, the donor will match with an additional $500. Your gifts can help Peace Week Delaware offer people across the state an opportunity to energize and build peace. Thank you for your support. Now, this morning, there are 4 ways to give. You can use the Gift Plus app on your smart device. You can go to the church website and click on Donate. Or you can mail a check to the church office, and please remember to indicate Peace Week in the memo line. Or there's a 4th way. For those of you who are here this morning who prefer to leave an offering, there is a box on the pedestal at the rear of the sanctuary where you can leave your offering, as we are not having ushers circulate among those in attendance at this time. And now, please join me in dedicating our offering to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action. We dedicate our lives, and these are offerings.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown of love, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. crown, oh love, show me the way. Oh, fathers, let's go down, let's go down, come on down. Oh, fathers, let's go down, down in the river to pray. As I went down to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, oh love, show me the way. Oh, mothers, let's go down, let's go down, come on down. Oh, mothers, let's go down, down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying that good old way, and who shall wear the crown, oh love, show me the way. Oh, neighbors, let's go down, let's go down, go down, down, down. Neighbors, let's go down, down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, oh love, show me the way.
As we bring our service to a close, hear these words by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love.
As we extinguish this chalice, may we carry forward the wellspring of peace and justice and harvest the power of our connection. May it be so.